For many, football is an escape from the pressures of life and the hard times. The coronavirus took that away. Nearly 2 whole years without fans were soul destroying for supporters and clubs alike. This is the story of Southport Football Club, but it will resonate with fans of many other non-league clubs.
These are our seats, these are our stands, these are our crowds, nothing without fans. These are our seats, these are our stands, these are our crowds, nothing without.
As the COVID-19 pandemic ripped through daily life and the English game, non-league football was an afterthought. The mainstream media's focus was on the Premier League's Project Restart and how UEFA would resume the Champions League. The National League North, where Southport plied their trade, had already been null and voided months earlier, in April to be exact. The Sandgrounders finished 12th after the table was decided on a points per game basis. The 2020-21 National League North season had the same outcome. The club season curtailed in February after just 14 games. The club sat 17th in the league. Owner Ian Kyle explains why the club voted for null and voiding the season on both occasions.
It had to be, in my opinion. There was too much concerns with, firstly, safety, and then secondly, finances, on the basis that the National League grants ran out at the end of December. So we were then left to fend for ourselves from January onwards with no crowd, which was never going to happen.
Captain Adam Anson also backed that outcome, as it was the players who were in the most danger if the league would have continued.
It was the best interests of the people and the staff and fans to null and void the season. We were playing with no fans, but we were asking players to turn up to training, not knowing if for the families had had COVID in the household and stuff. So I think it was the right decision. And
the fans understood the decision and supported it, as hard as it was not seeing their heroes in action every week.
Yeah, it wasn't safe, so it wasn't fair either. Some clubs would have benefited from the fact that some clubs don't need the gate as much as we do, say, or Bradford Park Avenue, or guys like Live Spartans. They've got owners behind them with money, and sponsorships and things like that. So, yeah, I think it was the right decision.
Liam Watson has had 3 spells in the dugout at Hague Avenue. From 2003 to 2006, 2008 to 2013, and 2018 to the present day. He has guided the club to the Conference North title on 2 occasions. He emphasises what the fans mean to the club.
Owners, managers, players and all that, they come and go. Volunteers and fans, they don't.
Football's my life. I come here and it makes my week, it makes my day. There's something to look forward to at the end of the week. If you can't do it, it's not the same watching it on telly, it's not the same. You want to be here, you want to be in the atmosphere, you want to be with everyone you know. It's what it's all about, isn't it, really?
It was difficult because I've been doing this, I've been coming here for a long time. I missed the people, I missed the social aspect, I missed the football, I missed the interaction with the fans, the players, and less so the officials, but you still get some interaction with them.
That sums up the feeling most supporters felt watching football behind closed doors, or not having it at all. Longing for a return to the stands to cheer on their beloved team, and the players and owners were just as desperate to have them back.
It was difficult, it was really difficult, and even when the games were on behind closed doors, it's fine if you're in the Premier League and you're on TV. National League and non-league football generally is about the fans. It's about fans coming, having a good day with their friends, having a pint, having a pie, having a good day out. That's what National League football's about. So without the fans, what's the point?
Hamish, the Sandgrounders volunteer kitman, epitomises why carrying on without fans was beneficial, but also detrimental at the same time.
The pandemic, when it hit us, obviously was all very new to us. 2 seasons where we didn't complete the season. Very difficult playing behind closed doors. Had some advantages. So, for example, going going away from home to grounds that might be a little bit vociferous. All of a sudden there's nobody there, so you do lose that side of the game. But playing at home was similarly very soul destroying in some ways. It just went to prove that you've got to have crowds to play football.
If fans are the heart of non-league football clubs, then the volunteers that give up their free time to ensure that the club runs smoothly are the oxygen.
We acted as ball boys, so I was basically here for all the behind the closed doors, so you could. It was very interesting actually, because you can hear all the players' colourful language and things like that, and their sort of words to the referee and what they call the linesman and things like that, even more clearer than usual. So yeah, no, I was a ball boy, so I saw all the games during the pandemic. But no, of course we followed the government guidance, unlike a few other people in the thing. We weren't partying in the huts or anything like that. But what we did do is, as soon as the COVID restrictions were relaxed, the grounds got fully painted. We did a lot of weeding. We cut all the weeds on the banks. We cut all the brambles down. Whatever we could really to get the ground back into ship shape.
The volunteers even had to test players.
For example, there was one game we played here in the FA Trophy at home to Torquay, where we actually had to test our players before the game in the lounge to make sure they were safe to play. So that was quite an experience, trying to get footballers to understand in the early days of testing how to actually set up the testing system for them.
The club's captain and owner were both very critical of the lack of testing in the National League North.
To be fair, it wasn't good enough in my opinion. We were asked to turn up to games, and they only started to introduce it, I think, the last week of the season. We were doing a lateral flow test, but in the National League they were getting fully tested week in, week out, and obviously in the Premier League all the way down. So for National League North players to turn up without knowing if players had COVID or not, I don't think was very good.
What were your thoughts on vaccine procedures as well?
I mean, I've had both of my vaccines, but I do believe that it should be a personal choice if you want your vaccines or not, and I don't think you should be not allowed to play because of your personal choice.
In this league, it was the only league where they didn't provide testing, so we effectively had to have staff, volunteers, players all untested. And obviously when you're travelling 200 miles to an away game with everyone on the same coach, it's not safe.
Football finance expert Kieran Maguire explains the difference in the impact of the pandemic on the Premier League and non-league.
It impacted in terms of all three of the key revenue streams that we get in football. First of all, from the broadcast deals. The Premier League had to pay a rebate of around about 300 million. I think it was the same in respect of UEFA for the Champions League and Europa League, because we went for a period of 3 months without football, and I think people have that seems to have been extinguished from people's memory. But football didn't exist for a while. Match day income was pretty significant. Probably cost the clubs somewhere in the region of 800 million because we lost a full season and 6 matches. And some of the commercial deals fell as well because the commercial partners were using breakout clauses. So it was expensive for football at the professional end. It was also expensive for football at the grassroots end because people weren't allowed to play football. People weren't allowed to watch football. There was a period of time when we were allowed to attend non-league matches, which did give them a boost from a short period of time. But it's hit the sport harder than I think people realise. What we see in non-league in particular, that they don't have the benefit of the commercial deals and the broadcast deals. There are some clubs in the Premier League, for example, who only get £3 out of every 100 come from the turnstiles. Whereas if we look at non-league, it's going to be more than half of your income. And it's not just the ticket sales, it's the fact that ideally after a match, you've got a fair number of fans in the clubhouse who are eating and drinking, and the clubs make a lot of money on that as well. If people can't physically attend, then you've got to question why some of the matches at times were taking place.
Ian Kyle explains how this affected Southport specifically.
Well, it was, I mean, again, it comes back to why we had to stop the league, because initially the league obtained funding for the first 3 months of the season while we had no fans, because obviously no fans is no income. Not just through season tickets and ticket sales, but also beer, food, you know, everything to do with the ground. It was about income. So if you got no fans, you got no income. Now the National League provided grants for the first 3 months, but didn't extend that for the rest of the season. So with no income, again, you know, these aren't wealthy clubs with a lot of backing. We live week to week. So if you haven't got your income week to week, you can't continue.
Maguire expands on the financial help the clubs received.
Yeah, I think there were two sets of monies which came from the government. The first were genuine grants, and then the government spoke about further grants. But as you rightly said, that they turned out to be loans from the likes of Sport England and so on. They're zero interest and they're quite long term in terms of repayment. But even if it's long terms, they still have to be repaid at some point in time. So I think that disappointed a lot of clubs, especially those who were hoping to perhaps take that money and put that into much needed infrastructure. There's still a criminal lack of investment in the non-league structure of football, because there's so much focus on what's happening at the top tier. People are ignoring that the smaller clubs who are still important, because they provide identity, they provide employment, they provide a focal point for people who can't afford to go to matches, or perhaps don't want to go to the environment that we have in the upper echelons of professional football. Then it's I think it's dangerous that and a shame that, given that so much money is being given out by government, why they couldn't have had a second tranche of loans, so a second tranche of grants instead of loans.
The distribution of these funds caused major rifts between the league and clubs. Some felt like the money that they received was not proportionate.
They did take advantage of the furlough, which was the right and proper thing to do, because it was called the Job Retention Scheme, and that's what it achieved. The government did give some financial assistance, and there were grants given as well. This resulted in many clubs in the non-league falling out with the people in charge of the league, because of the distribution model that was used. Some people on relatively low crowds were getting more money from the distribution than those on bigger. So I think that those scars have not healed. Speaking to people in non-league football, there's a lot of bad blood in the National League in particular, in terms of what happened. Everybody's acting in self-interest, and that's fully understandable. Yeah, we all operate in self-interest in our personal lives, and it applies to sort of the corporate stroke football world as well.
Maguire also explains why the impact of the pandemic makes it so hard for the club to compete for success.
It's a loss-making club, like many in the National League. What we see is that the National League and the National League North are practically all full-time professionals, whereas the National League South it tends to be more part-time, with some really big hitters now in non-league football in terms of the wages which are being paid. And I was aware that there were clubs in the National League a couple of seasons ago paying £5,000 a week to players. You know, it's more than they could expect to get in Leagues 1 and 2. It makes it very difficult for the likes of Southport, who don't have that type of backing behind them financially, and who still want to remain competitive.
The club is essentially playing catch-up, with 2 years of financial planning out the window, as Ian Kyle reveals.
It's always difficult to plan ahead if you haven't got the income. We're always using our income and looking at our income to plan for the week ahead, the month ahead, the next season. So if you haven't got that, it's difficult to build your plans. And the other major way we were affected as well was that a lot of our finances, a lot of our income come through sponsors. And as soon as the pandemic hit and we don't have fans here, the sponsors stopped paying because they've got no one to sponsor to. So we lost a lot of income that way. So we're effectively having to kind of rebuild the last 2 years and start again. Yeah, it was all. This season has been about restabilising. It's about getting back to where we should be. Whereas, if we'd have had the last 2 years without the pandemic, we'd be 2 years on in our financial building, which we're not. We've had to go back 2 years, start again, and start to rebuild. Try and get sponsors back on board. Try and get season ticket holders back on board. Because there was a lot of uncertainty from season ticket holders. People didn't buy because they didn't know if this season was going to go through to the end or not, because they've lost the last two. So again, hopefully season ticket sales next season will be up because people can see that it's back to normal.
Season ticket holders that did not renew would have missed stunning strikes like these. Head of Commercial and Operations Steve Dewsnip is confident that the club is bouncing back from the pandemic, both on and off the field.
We've had people wanting to support the football club. They can see that we are a community asset. We operate at the heart of the community. We enrich people's lives in so many different ways, be it that whether that's children, underprivileged elements of our society, the elderly, or we try to position ourselves as very much a family club, and a lot of sponsors can see that. They can see the benefits of associating themselves with Southport Football Club. We have had some new names. For instance, this season we've got 2 new names on the back of our shirts and on the sleeves of our playing shirts. So that's 2 new sponsors. We've had a new sponsor that sponsored one of our terraces. Our main front of shirt sponsor has remained with us both, before, during, and now after the pandemic, which is great to see. So, as I said, some businesses did really well out of the pandemic. Others struggled a little bit. It would be wrong of me to say that it's all been plain sailing, because it clearly hasn't. We've had to put a lot of hard work into our relationships with sponsors, our relationships with supporters, but I'm pleased to say we're moving in the right direction, and now we're looking forward to build on pretty solid foundations and attract even more sponsors going forward.
So, consolidating old sponsorship deals and adding fresh impetus in the commercial department remain the focus off the pitch, but what was being done on it?
We are a part-time football club, so we, in our division where we're competing with half a dozen or so full-time professional clubs, our playing budget will never be as high as some of those other clubs. Having said that, you can only ever field 11 players at any one time, so we are sometimes punching above our weight. But the great thing for us on the pitch was that we were able to secure contract renewals and contract extensions for the majority of our squad halfway through last season. So that meant that we were able to go into pre-season this last summer without some of the player contract chases that other clubs have to endure, it would appear, every single year. We brought 2 or 3 new signings in. Unfortunately, one of our summer signings was injured in pre-season, and we're going to lose him for much of this playing season. And we're currently looking at bringing some more players on board. So, on the pitch, we run with a small squad, which is the way that the manager wants to operate and has served him well over many years. But of course, financially, if the manager does want to strengthen the squad and bring in 1 or 2 extra players, then the support is there for him to do so. The academy has been a big success of ours, and it's something that I've worked tirelessly on over the last 7 or 8 months or so. We tried to get a 16 to 19s academy underway last year and the year before. Unfortunately, the pandemic thwarted us a little bit, and we had to delay it until this month. We have launched that in partnership with a local sixth form at Christ the King sixth form centre. We've got a squad of 18 boys that have joined us, and that's something that we've got big hopes for in the future. We think that that can develop into providing a conveyor belt of players who, if they're good enough, will obviously be knocking on the doors of the first team squad to try to force their way into the first team manager's thoughts. And we look to take on one, if not two, additional groups next year. And in due course, we are also thinking about extending that into a girls' academy programme as well. So, as I say, we've got big hopes for that particular part of our operation.
As the legendary former Celtic manager Jock Stein once said, "Without fans who pay at the turnstile, football is nothing." The coronavirus was the harshest reminder of this. But Southport fans have done a good job of helping their club to get back on track. And without them, it definitely would not have been possible.